is, for Bobby and I want to share a little bit of our own history in how this mindset will affect us in the church and how we relate to each other and how things go south sometimes and how we work through them. We met in Harrisonburg. I had actually been a part of a church plant, and I was on staff when he came in. He had just graduated from Virginia Tech in agricultural economics, and I thought it was safe. And we got married 2 years later, and we ended up going to school. And I'd been ministering in that church for a number of years. When we came back, we continued to pastor and to minister, and we were part of that church. I think it was up to 14 years. And I was the worship leader. I was the very first worship leader, and so I helped establish a lot of the worship team ministries. We multiplied. We had other locations, other churches that had been birthed out of this one, and a lot of leaders that were coming forth. And I was very involved in the worship ministry. We had conferences and seminars and teaching. We had a Bible school, and actually the land that the church was built on was right across the field from where Bobby grew up. So for us, it was like, we're going to retire here. It's great. It's wonderful. But then things changed. And what God began to do in our hearts seemed to be a little different than the church leadership. And of course, hindsight is always better. But at that time, the changes that we saw happening and the decisions that were being made, it really upset us because this wasn't right. It wasn't us. And how dare you? And it was very emotionally really hard because things, were being said and things were happening, and it really wasn't a matter of right or wrong. It was perspectives. It was things that were going on, and it was getting really hard for us. And it was very hard emotionally because there was so much strain in the relationships and among leaders. And so anyway, I was ready to leave. Bobby was getting there, but we needed to hear from the Lord. And so this was during the time of the Brownsville outpouring down there in Pensacola. And so we decided we're going to go down there. We need to hear a word from the Lord. And what we were hoping for is that the Lord would say, I understand. I feel, I'm so sorry to hear that. And you're released to go, and you're going to be blessed, and that's great. That's not what he told us. We went there and he said, I see. I want you to stay another year. And I want you to learn how to bless leadership that you don't agree with. And you can't tell anybody. It's not what we were expecting to hear. But he told us why. He said, I want you to stay and I want you to learn to bless the leadership because I want you to leave with blessing. And if you leave now, you won't leave with blessing. Because the way that you leave this assignment is going to determine how you enter your next assignment. And if you leave with blessing, if you can stick it out and trust me, I guarantee you're going to enter your next assignment with great blessing. So that's what we hung on to. And we didn't share it, and very few people knew what we were having to walk through of just serving. And Bobby was impacted by it more than I was because he was on staff full time. I was actually at home with the kids for the most part. But just to serve. And this is when he really placed in our hearts too of the love for the body, because this was our family. And our flesh would have been so tempted to even start telling just a few others what we really saw, what was really going on. But you can't do that. It would serve no purpose because they were going to stay there. And we blessed, and by the time that we left about a year later, relationships were solid. The Lord just walked us through that and helped us to, share of how we were being called out, and we did it with grace, with blessing. There were no bridges burned. To this day, we can go back whenever we want. I just had a conversation with the senior pastor here last week because the Lord gave me a dream about him. And I told him, you'll always be family. We went different ways. We saw things differently. But what happened when we moved here to Winchester? Within the first year, we saw the manifestation of what God told us. We were the new kids in town. We might as well have been on an overseas mission because we knew no one here. I mean, everything was in our house. We did homeschool in the house. We had church in the house. We had the office in the house. We knew nobody. And yet, within that first year, Bobby met with some pastors here in the community, some of the largest churches here that they've been pastors for years. And they'd sit down to lunch with him and just kind of pour out their heart to him. And one of them even said, I don't know why I'm doing this. I feel safe with you. There was such favor. We knew it was God. There was absolutely no reason why that should happen. But it was blessing. And within the first couple of years that we were here, Bobby was able to initiate some pastoral prayer summits. One year we had 25 pastors, all different denominations, going away for 4 days to pray. God was true to his word. Because we honored his bride, he honored us.